Sure.
Okay.
Okay, let's just go.
Okay. So, we're going to do it.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
Okay. Hi. This is Rachel Stevenson with Origin Stories, episode 4.
Episode 4.
Really excited that today I'm going to be doing this work with my daughter, Simone Lila.
Hi, I'm very excited to be here today.
Simone is, she is my first official guest
I am.
on this new thing that we call Origin Stories.
Very exciting. I'm excited.
Yeah, well, so one of the reasons I thought it would be fun to do this with you in particular, because I want folks to know a little bit about you, maybe you'll tell them, you know, where you are in life, what you're studying, because I think that's a nice little entry point into the kind of conversation I want to have. So do you want to say a little bit about who you are and like what you're doing in the world?
Yeah, so my name is Simone. I'm going into my sophomore year of college, and I'm majoring in philosophy and minoring in psychology. I decided that I wanted to at least study the humanities, specifically psychology, really going into my freshman year of college. And that's because growing up, we've always had conversations like the ones we're having on Origin Stories that you've probably heard about thus far with my mom. And it's very much who I am as a human being, talking about things, what I've experienced, my emotions to process said feelings. And I wanted to study that in college, and I'm thinking that, you know, in my future I may want to be a psychologist. Like, that's where I'm going to end up, specifically with adolescents during this formative time in their lives. So I think it's really fitting that we're talking right now about the experiences specifically in our childhood and throughout our lives that have shaped us to who we are today and the choices we make, and I'm excited.
That's perfect. So I started this, as you know, by talking about the childhood experiences that I think really formed who I am in the world. And the reason I'm really excited to have you and your sisters participate is because I've said a couple times that this has really affected my decisions as a parent, things I do, right? And so it's had an impact on you and your childhood. And so I mean, you've already opened up the conversation with your introduction, but I guess, you know, knowing that the whole point of this is to build out some understanding about what it means to have these kind of conversations, what it looks like, what it feels like. I was thinking, you know, what are some things that we could talk about that demonstrate that? I also wanted to start with a memory. And it's not the one you're thinking of.
Okay.
We may get to that one later.
Okay.
Suspense. But it's a memory of hearing from your third grade teacher.
I was just thinking about this the other night.
Yeah. And I'll tell my version, but then I'm actually more interested in hearing yours. I think other people probably will be too. But what I got from your third grade teacher was that the class, and it was a small class in a progressive elementary school in New York City, was reading a book and doing some reading aloud in the classroom. And one of the themes in the book was around discovering secrets, if I'm remembering correctly. And when the class started to talk about this, you actually volunteered information about the history I've shared already here, which is that there was a secret about my mom's death, and I was, you know, it was later in life when I found out, and it really, you know, created this thing. And all I can say is that the teacher was shocked and amazed that a kid that young would just sort of start talking about family dynamics like that and impact on, you know, how people feel and all the rest. So anyway, I probably said enough. Do you remember that experience in school? And like, what do you think prompted you to be that person in that moment?
I remember bits and pieces because I joke around with my family that I don't really have a memory from, you know, ages 0, 12. So I was in third grade. I was young. I was like 9 years old. But I do remember specifically talking about, like your mom and the death and the secrets. I don't know exactly what I said, but I remember being very open and like having other classmates kind of like look at me kind of interested, but also surprised that I had this kind of family history, but I was also talking about it. So like I remember a bit of it, and I think it's just who I am naturally to want to talk about these topics. I don't know if I would do that now in like my college course, start talking
Really?
about my family. Yeah, like I think I would maybe, if anything, say less than what I did, like just start kind of talking about all of my family and its history. I don't know if I would do that now in a class, but yeah, when I was young, I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to be open and yeah.
Well, the reaction you got, because you said people seemed surprised, so
Yeah.
that, I mean, like that in and of itself signaled that this is something different.
Right.
Well, and the fact that your teacher called home to say, this opened up a conversation.
Right.
I'm surprised. I'm appreciative, whatever that was. So clearly as a kid, you're getting feedback that maybe isn't sort of the norm.
Right.
And do you remember processing that at all, or having it make you think about the choice you made?
I don't remember that much hearing that it wasn't the norm, because it was so normalized in our household. I don't think it really like impacted me hearing that if I did. But clearly it hasn't changed who I am, because I'm still somebody who wants to talk about this and put it on the forefront. So yeah.
Well, and that's one of the reasons I was excited to start these conversations with you in particular, because you've been your whole life sort of open to wrestling with complexity and things that aren't always comfortable, you know what I mean? And so actually this gets me to the story that I think you were anticipating. Which is, this is kind of a funny thing, and well, it's not funny at all, actually. It's not funny.
Mom was not laughing.
I was not laughing at the time. But so this is an important moment in the TEDx talk I did some years ago. And actually it's an important moment in my journey as a mother. And let's just get to it. We'll tell it and then we'll sort of talk about it. But Simone played a key part in this story, even though she has no memory of this. This moment ended up being a really beautiful moment because it opened up a conversation between me and Simone and her older sister at the time that I think helped to define our relationship. So anyway, the point is, and I'll make this quick, the story is basically that Simone wished that I wasn't her mother. No. That's not exactly
We need context.
That's not exactly. We need a little more context. She'd been hanging out with her aunt, who's, you know, an amazing part of our lives, my husband's sister, her father's sister. And, you know, Aunt Camp was always a really fun thing
very fun.
During the summer. And, you know, she did us a huge favor and spent time with her nieces and, like, treated them to candy and roller skating.
We went to Sky Zone a lot. That
shopping,
was a big thing.
Right. Like, it was just fun, and more fun. And so Simone had come home that night and was basically retelling, you know, what had happened that day, and was super excited about the next day because there was more to come. And just in a moment of kind of, and I think you were maybe 4 or 5, like not conscious. Not conscious
at all.
according to Simone. But you know, just in this moment of, wow, we had a great day, and we're gonna have a great day tomorrow, was just kind of this, oh, I wish Lily was our mommy. Now, Lily is what my kids call their aunt. That moment actually made me cry, like hardcore cry, away from the girls. I heard that, it triggered something in me, remembering friends out there that, you know, one of the things I've wrestled was the fact that right after my mom died, my grandmother suggested that I call her mommy. So there's this whole kind of replaceability fear that I had, this erasure complex, you know, that I dealt with, where it's like I didn't want my mom to disappear. She existed. No one can take that away from me. So the point is, in that moment where I hear this thing, it triggered me, right? And so I remember running into the bathroom of the apartment and like sobbing hard, which didn't do all that much. And both of you sort of crept down the hallway because something like, what's going on? What's going on with mom? And Gigi, who is Simone's oldest sister, kind of somehow managed to get you guys into the bathroom, and there were some hugs, and I was coaxed out. And then I remember making a decision. We went into the living room and sat down, and this is, you know, let's just say you were about 4. That means Gigi was about 7. I mean, these are young little humans, you know. And I just said, in the spirit of, full transparency, because this is the point of origin stories, I was like, I want to explain what just happened, And so I remember sitting down with you guys and saying, and you probably had already heard this, but my mom died, and I'm afraid of being replaced. I'm afraid that I'm replaceable. And hearing something like that just makes me feel like, oh, well, maybe I am. I remember it being a dramatic moment for me, in large part because both of you said very clearly, no one can replace you. Yeah. And this is a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old saying this. And do you remember, you don't remember saying that? Do you remember this conversation?
No, I have like no memory of this at all. But it definitely subconsciously impacted.
Well, so what do you think? Because I say it's such a formative moment for us. And really my relationship to you as a mother, to say, I'm going to just be honest, and this is kind of an ugly, raw truth, and maybe I'm having a moment of weakness, but I'm reacting so profoundly to this. But I just chose, let me talk about it, let's put it out there, because this is, I want to chart a path as people in a relationship, like this is the way we do things. So, again, because I have tremendous respect for your ability to go to deep, dark, complex places, like, what does it mean to you to be the kid who said those words that kind of triggered that reaction? What do you think about the fact that we had that moment? Just thoughts and reflections.
Well, I think for me, since like I don't have a memory of saying this, I feel somewhat removed from the event, even though it obviously tremendously impacted our relationship, really, for you as a mother, like making this decision. This is how you're gonna, address these topics with your children.
So yeah, that was a moment, and you played a big part in that, and I'm actually grateful it happened, because I feel like I was able to say, I'm afraid of this thing, and you both were able to say that could never happen.
Yeah.
That was a powerful thing.
Yeah.
It looks like you're about to say something.
Well, that's why even though I feel somewhat removed from this topic, that's why, like, I'm still happy it happened in a way, because as a young kid, like, I was 4 years old having this amazing time with my aunt who I love to death, right? Like, it shows just when you're young, you have these big emotions, and sometimes they come out in ways that aren't necessarily like the best, or you say things you don't mean, even if it's not in this, like, I'm not intentionally saying this with, a means to hurt my mother, or I want to.
Right, of course.
But it just shows, like, like, especially when we're kids, we have these complex emotions, and that's why we need to face it head on and talk about it, because then it makes it easier for me as a kid to understand, okay, like, I love my aunt so much, but it's like, I don't mean that I want her to be my mom. You're my mom. Like, that's why it's so helpful, in my opinion, to have these conversations, because it helps when you're older how you navigate things in a more, like, in a clearer headspace.
Okay, a couple more questions, and then we'll probably, for today,
we can, but there's so much to talk about.
There's so much more.
We've had, we've had, like, so many conversations just, like, Sunday mornings. I talk about this. When I was applying to college, I, like, wrote about this in my, like, psychology, but, like, so many conversations. Sunday mornings, on the couch, hours that we've talked about, like, even outside of origin stories, but just, like, societal structures and their impacts, and how, it's really fascinating.
Our recent long walks.
Our recent long walks have been crazy.
Yeah. So more on that. But okay, so a couple more things for today. First, so you're saying, if this thing happened when you were 4-ish, whatever, you don't consider yourself fully conscious until many years later. Think about that, and think about the fact that when my mom died, I was 5.
Right.
I mean, right? Like, was I even fully conscious? I mean, I do have memories. They're few and far between, I think is the right way to say it.
Yeah.
I do, but not a lot. But, I mean, does that, just thinking about the age...
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Because I've thought about this before, where, like, I grew up with no memories of any of my parents except one, and that's because first my mom's mom passed away before I was alive, and then my dad's dad passed away when I was 8 months old, and my mom's dad passed away when I was
It was 2013.
so I was like 4, turning 5. So, like, growing up, death has always been very present in my life, but because of that, because I was so young, I've always thought about, like, am I in some way lucky that they passed away before I was fully conscious? Because, you know, you don't have to necessarily actively grieve, but you're still grieving, like, in this less, I mean, I don't know if intense is the right word, but, you know, it's not like I, like, remember experiencing their loss. So, like, when I think about how young you were, it's just, it's like you grew up without her, and you have some memories, but I feel like in grief, a lot of time when you grow up with just knowing their lack of presence more than their presence, it's like part of the grief is not necessarily missing what you had with them because you don't have a lot of those memories, but trying to keep their memory alive. So it's like what you talk about, they existed, you know, you don't want to lose them. So I think that's a lot of what I think about. Like, this summer I've been doing research. I'm gonna do a little bit of this. I've been doing research on Nigerian immigration to the United States, and I chose Nigerian immigration because my grandfather, my dad's dad, was Nigerian, born and raised there, came, you know, to the States to study and stayed here. Of course, he had his family, and I think through that, I've grown so much closer to him as my grandparent because I've learned about him as a student, as a father, and all those ways. But, you know, so a lot of, I think, how I deal with their deaths and not having them in my life is, you know, actively trying to keep them here. So I think
that's... It's a little bit of an intellectual exercise.
Right, it is.
Well, and so that... And the wondering what might have been, but the intellectual exercise, right. And that's interesting to me. You know, like, is it more intellectual than emotional?
No, because, like, I still do sometimes have moments where I'm just obviously very sad that I've never gotten to meet them, because at the end of the day, like, and this is a common saying, I'm pretty sure, but, like, heartbreak is the biggest privilege, right? Because that means you knew a person, you loved them, like, it was probably reciprocated, the love, you know? So, I mean, moments like that where I just really sit down and realize, like, I have no memories with those grandparents, and that is such, like, there's a hole in our family because of that, you know? So it's not more intellectual than emotional, you know? It's normal for me, but it's still a loss, you know?
Thank you, Simone.
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're doing this. No, it's so exciting. It's so exciting because I'm telling you, like, I love the conversations we have, and it's a key part of, like, how you've raised us, and you've done really well with it. So, like, I'm so happy that people get to hear these conversations, because maybe, you know, people can take things from it and apply it to their relationships with their kids, or just not that carry it, you know, every day as an individual, and how it impacts the way you process things. But it's exciting.
Yeah. All right, you'll be back. You would definitely be back.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
All right, everyone. This is Rachel Stevenson. It's Origin Stories, and I'll see you soon.